The first light of dawn crept through the cracks in the wattle and daub wall, illuminating dust motes dancing in the chill air. For Alara, the day began not with a stretch or a yawn, but with the familiar gritty scrape of her morning ritual. On a small, worn stool by the hearth, she reached for the linen cloth and the little clay pot that held her cleansing mixture. The rough fabric, softened only by years of use, felt familiar in her small hands. She dipped a corner into the pot, coating it with the coarse salt and the crushed, dried mint leaves her mother had prepared. The sharp, clean scent of mint filled her nostrils, a small, defiant fragrance against the smoky, earthy smells of their one-room cottage. Bringing the cloth to her mouth, she began the careful, methodical scrubbing her mother had taught her. Back and forth, round and round, the abrasive salt gritted against her teeth, a sensation so ingrained it was as much a part of her as the calluses on her fingers from spinning wool. But this morning, a different sensation bloomed deep within her jaw. A dull, persistent throb that made her wince as she pressed the cloth against a particular molar on the lower left. The ache was a recent, unwelcome guest, a tiny constant shadow in the rhythm of her days. As she worked, her mind drifted to the stories her mother told by firelight, tales of wise women and the old ways. She remembered one about the sage that grew wild near the stream, its silvery green leaves said to strengthen teeth and banish mouth rot. She imagined chewing on a fresh sage leaf, its pungent, earthy flavor washing away the pain, making her teeth as strong as the village blacksmith's anvil. It was a comforting thought, a small piece of magic in their simple, hardscrabble life. Her mother's quiet presence beside her broke the reverie. A warm, work-roughened hand rested gently on her shoulder, and Alara looked up into a face lined with years and kindness. Her mother's eyes, the same shade of hazel as her own, held a knowing softness. She didn't need to be told about the toothache, a mother always knows. With a gentle squeeze, she took the cloth from Alara's hand, showing her once more the proper, firm motion, the importance of reaching every surface. She spoke in low, reassuring tones, her voice a steady hum in the quiet cottage. The message was the same as always. Their means were simple, their tools humble, but the act itself was vital. It was a defense, a small daily victory against the decay and hardship that constantly pressed at the edges of their world. It was a tradition, passed from mother to daughter, a ritual of care woven into the very fabric of their survival. Finishing, Alara spat the gritty residue into the ashes of the hearth, the minty freshness lingering on her tongue, a brief, clean moment before the day's true labors began. The persistent throb in Alara's jaw had grown from a dull shadow into a sharp, insistent presence, a pulse of pain that echoed with every beat of her heart. By midday, it was a constant companion, making the coarse bread of her noon meal an agony to chew and the cool water from the well a temporary fleeting balm. The memory of her mother's reassuring words and the morning's minty ritual felt distant, a feeble defense against this mounting siege. The pain was a tyrant, demanding surrender. With a look of shared understanding, her mother gave a slow, solemn nod. The time for home remedies had passed, it was time to seek the healer. The apothecary's shop was a world unto itself, nestled in a slightly leaning timber-framed building near the village square. Stepping over the threshold was like entering a different element. The air was thick, warm, and heavy with a tapestry of scents. The dusty sweetness of dried chamomile, the sharp tang of hanging sage bundles, the earthy musk of roots and bark stored in countless sacks and clay jars. Master Thomas, a man whose beard was as grizzled and full of secrets as the forest floor, looked up from his mortar and pestle. His eyes, keen and intelligent, took in Alara's pinched expression and the way her small hand cupped her jaw. He needed no explanation. With a gesture, he beckoned her to a stool near the small, leaded glass window where the light was best. His hands, though stained with the juices of 100 different plants, were surprisingly gentle as he asked her to open her mouth. Alara complied, the movement itself sending a fresh lance of fire through her gum. He peered inside, his brow furrowed in concentration. He hummed a low, noncommittal sound, a sound that held the weight of countless examinations. The offending molar was visibly angry, the surrounding gum swollen and red. He nodded to himself, the diagnosis clear. Turning to his cluttered workbench, he became a study in efficient motion. He selected a handful of dried rosemary sprigs from a bundle, their needle-like leaves releasing a pungent, piney aroma as he crushed them roughly in his palm. These he dropped into a small, blackened copper pot already containing a measure of sharp, eye-watering vinegar. He set the pot over a small brazier, the flames licking its base as he began to stir the concoction with a hazel twig. As it heated, the shop filled with the potent, medicinal smell of rosemary boiling in vinegar, a scent that promised both sting and solace. While the mixture simmered, Master Thomas spoke, his voice a low rumble. He explained that the wealthy, like the lord in his manor house, often used polished hazel twigs like the one he stirred with, or even small, expensive sponges on sticks, dipped in fine wines or perfumed waters. Some he added with a wry twist of his lips, even swore by rinses made from aged urine, believing its ammonia content could whiten teeth and firm gums. Alara listened wide-eyed, the bizarre disparities of the world unfolding before her in the steam rising from the copper pot. The lesson in social hierarchy was made starkly real when the shop's door opened again, admitting a swirl of crisp autumn air and the subtle fragrance of lavender and beeswax. Lady Aliner, wife of the local knight, swept in, her fine woolen gown whispering against the rush-strewn floor. She addressed Master Thomas with a polite but detached air, requesting a tincture for a delicate stomach and a new batch of the rosewater and alum rinse she preferred for her teeth. Her presence seemed to make the very air in the shop finer, and Alara shrank back on her stool, acutely aware of her own coarse, homespun dress and the simple, painful reason for her visit. Master Thomas attended to the lady with a deferential nod, his manner shifting into one of polished service, a stark contrast to the practical, almost paternal care he showed Alara. Once Lady Aliner had departed with her elegantly packaged remedies, Master Thomas returned his attention to the now steaming potion. He poured the liquid through a fine cloth strainer into a small wooden cup, the filtered mouthwash a dark, herb-infused vinegar. He instructed Alara to take a small sip, to swish it around the pained area for as long as she could bear and then to spit. The first contact was a shock, a fierce acidic burn that made her eyes water. But as the intensity subsided, it left behind a strange, cooling numbness. The sharp, gnawing edge of the pain began to recede, dulled by the astringent wash. A sigh of profound relief escaped her, her small shoulders slumping as the tension of the day finally began to drain away. Seeing her relief, Master Thomas offered a rare, faint smile. He shared his insights as he cleaned his tools, his words weaving a tapestry of early science and enduring superstition. He spoke of humors and balances, of how an excess of black bile could lead to tooth rot, and how the sharpness of vinegar could correct it. But he also spoke of charms, of the power of certain words spoken over an aching tooth, and of the old belief that a toothworm, a tiny, invisible creature, was the true cause of all dental pain.